All right. So, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Candace Perry. I am the Environmental Justice Director at New Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection. I'm really delighted to be here with all of you in person and online, and also delighted to be sitting here with my two fellow panelists that will be talking with you tonight. Sean LaTourette, which is the state's environmental commissioner, and Olivia Glenn, the Chief of Staff at US EPA Region 2. So we are gathered here to speak with all of you to talk about environmental justice here in Gloucester County. Unfortunately, there are some communities because of their race, income, and how well they speak English that experience more environmental burdens than others. Examples of these burdens are flooding, air and water pollution, and the presence of contaminated sites like facilities like landfills, transfer stations, and incinerators that bring large diesel trucks throughout those communities. Those same communities also tend to have less environmental benefits, like green space and trees that cool and clean the air and soak up stormwater runoff and provide relief from the effects of extreme heat. We know that environmental justice issues come in many forms and they span across every region of our state, including in dense and in urban places, but also in suburban and rural communities. Environmental injustices occur in inland communities and those along our rivers and bays. In this region, specifically in Gloucester County, communities are contending with some of the most serious drinking water contamination issues in the country. And the legacy of the past industry in this region, unfortunately, brings with it some tough economic hardships, making revitalization and redevelopment opportunities supremely difficult, but all the more critical. This is why it is so important for government to hear directly from those of you who are most impacted so that we can be informed of your lived experiences and use that feedback to color and shape the work that we do every day. Gloucester County is the first stop on our environmental justice tour this year, which continues the previous 12 other stops of counties that we visited in the past years. And there will be more stops on our tour before the year's end. I want to give a special thanks to the Sons of Italy Lodge for hosting us and welcoming us into your space tonight, and to Mayor Stevenson for your hospitality, and to Timmy Lindsay and all of you who have toured us around and welcomed us into the city of Paulsboro. I also want to take a quick moment to acknowledge any other elected and appointed officials who might be in the room and online. Feel free to introduce yourself as you may approach the mic later on. We'd love to just say hi to you, and to say hi to those of you online. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. So our agenda is very simple for tonight. Soon I'm going to open the floor to all of you to come up and share your concern or ask a question or let us know what's on your mind. And we are paying attention to all of you online. I'll have some instructions for you later on. So we really want this to be a dialogue and discussion to learn and hear about your environmental challenges and concerns within Gloucester County. So the floor will be yours in a moment. But first, I want to turn it over to Sean LaTourette for some opening remarks.
Oh, good. Is that working?
Slide the,
Oh.
yeah.
How about now? All right. I'm plenty loud, so I could have just used my voice, but we want to make sure the folks online can hear us as well. Thank you to, again, the Sons of Italy for hosting us in this community gathering space. To your former mayor for his hospitality and service, for showing us around many sites of concern this afternoon. It's typical that before we hold one of these town halls or community engagement sessions that we'll take a bit of a tour around the community that we're visiting to get a sense of the landscape, to get a sense of what some of the environmental challenges may be. Given the broad amount of work that we do at the Department of Environmental Protection, right, being charged with protecting and improving our air, our land, our water, both the water we drink and the water that is flowing throughout our waterways and deep beneath our feet in our aquifers. There is a lot of good that we can do to help improve environmental conditions in the communities that we serve. But if we're not getting on the ground, directly engaging with the people we're meant to serve, we could sit in our concrete imposing government building in Trenton and think we have good ideas about how to improve our environment and protect public health. But they, without engaging with all of you, would be incomplete, because we want to make sure that as we're developing new policies and forming grant programs, while we're considering how best and how forcefully we need to enforce our environmental laws, that we understand your perspective. And that's why we're here today, because the environmental resources that we protect, right, they belong to you, right? It's your air, it's your land, it's your water. It's your community that may be flood prone or struggling with the lack of open space and opportunities for engagement with nature. And we can help through our work to solve for some of those challenges. And so that's what we want to hear from you today about. Can't promise that we'll have an answer to every single question on the spot, although with these two incredible and powerful women beside me, I think you'll be surprised with how much we can indeed answer on the spot. But we'll get you an answer if you're willing to share your name and your contact information. And even if the issue you're concerned about is not one within the authority of the Department of Environmental Protection, we are representatives of your state government. So we'll find you the right people to talk to, because that's what government should do. So I have the great privilege of serving alongside Candace at the DEP, working to deploy resources and protect our natural world and fulfill Governor Murphy's agenda to further the promise of environmental justice, work we do every single day. And we get to do that in partnership with our federal government, or our federal sister agency, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And we're fortunate to have Olivia Glenn, New Jersey girl at heart. And I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
And before you do that, Olivia, I forgot to mention that we do have Spanish interpretation services in the back, and should have started off this session with a line in Spanish to direct folks to use that. So I'm going to ask Olivia if you can read this line for me. Thanks.
Buenas tardes. Si necesita interpretación en español, utilice los auriculares en uno de esos portátiles. Gracias. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Olivia Glenn, and I'm the Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor for Equity for Region 2 of the US EPA. And that region covers New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and 8 federally recognized Indian nations. And I send you greetings today on behalf of Regional Administrator Lisa Garcia, who is on official travel right now. She was in upstate New York today, visiting one of our Indian nations, and is making her way to St. Thomas and St. John. So we couldn't get Paulsboro squeezed in the itinerary this time, but she sent me, and I'm delighted to be here. As Commissioner Latourette said, I am still a Jersey girl. I live in Camden County. So even in terms of understanding and being really synchronized with South Jersey and the very special place that this is and what makes it the Garden State and just a wonderful place to be, I'm certainly calibrated in that regard. So I'm really glad to be here with you. And I just want to thank the New Jersey DEP, who continues to give us this invitation to join them on these community engagement sessions and listening tours all around the state. And we know that we do more when we do it together, for government to do it together. So can't promise you I have an answer to everything, but I do have a wonderful team of people here with me. If you all want to raise your hands, see Jen, Miriam, Chiamaka, and Drew are all here. Did I miss anybody? I got the EPA people who are here, right? I got you all. Okay. So yes, we have those 4 individuals here who are here to help. And so I also just want to recognize each of you. Thank you for making the time to speak with us today. It is a measure of faith that you're even here to share your concerns with us. So we thank you for that. And thank you to Mr. Mayor for your time and your dedication, and to the Sons of Italy for also inviting us here. Thanks so much. Back to you, Commissioner and Candace.
Thank you. All right, continuing along with the train of thank yous, just a special thanks to the staff from the Office of Environmental Justice that you'll see at the welcome table and also the table in the back. They have a lot of printouts and handouts for you to take with you with a lot of good information. And so if you don't get a chance to answer your question for what, or to ask your question for whatever reason tonight, or if you want to connect with us and follow up offline, feel free to see them in the back. Okay, so the floor is now yours. I'm going to ask anyone who's interested to form a line to my left, your right at the microphone. Anyone who's unable, just raise your hand and we'll be able to bring the mic over to you. And we'll just take questions one by one. We're also monitoring online, so feel free to raise your hand. You can use the Zoom controls probably in the bottom, either right or left of your Zoom controls, to press the hand icon to raise your hand, and then you'll be in queue and we'll be able to call on you for you to say your comment or question. If you've called in and dialed on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and we'll be able to see you and call on you that way. Just one more note that is very important to me. We have really organized this tour to be for the overburdened communities of each county that we're visiting. And so we want to yield the floor and have the time, in particular, for those overburdened communities within Gloucester County. So if you are from Clayton Borough, Deptford Township, Elk Township, Franklin Township, Glassboro Borough, Greenwich Township, Harrison Township, Logan Township, Monroe Township, Paulsboro, Swedesboro, Washington Township, West Deptford, or Westville Borough, we invite you to come and to ask your question or comment. If you're not from that overburdened community, we ask that you, again, yield the floor to those folks to ask their question or comment first, and we'll circle it back around to you at the end. Please do, Mayor. Thank you. Kick us off.
Hello. Okay. Let me start. I'll turn my back on the commissioner and ladies. Thank you. Gary Stevenson, longtime mayor of Paulsburg, councilman, fire chief, funeral director, and everything. But first, I do want to thank the commissioner and ladies, and especially your staff. They were great for the preliminary meeting and going out today. We welcome you to the home of champions here in Paulsburg. So thank you. I appreciate you for being here, and thank you to that wonderful staff, you ladies and men. Thank you. I spoke enough when I went on the tour, but just to talk about a couple of things. Let me switch back to the train derailment. When the train derailment here, the vinyl chloride, my house got hit by the train. You all know where I lived. The bridge collapsed, and no one wanted to take responsibility. The chemical people said it was the train people's fault for not maintaining the bridge, and this one said it was that. But in the end, the borough received no economic retribution for all the problems that they caused. And for us who lived in Paulsboro at the time. Now, I've talked to the mayor of East Palestine in Ohio, which had the same vinyl chloride. A few more cars, but regardless. And, you know, he's talking about they're going to get a lot of money. Paulsboro got $75,000. Believe it or not, that just really paid for the police overtime. So I think there ought to be discussion down the road about who's responsible for the town, because we lost economically a huge amount of our town. Businesses closed. You know, people swore that the vinyl chloride's been still in the ground as we speak today. My house nobody would come over to my house because it was contaminated with vinyl chloride. But yet when I went to the rail people and the chemical people, hey, you know, I think we ought to talk about this. The next time they call me will be the first time they call me since that happened in 12 years ago. So I just think, you know, that was the beginning of what was a bunch of catastrophic events. And the next one would have been the PFNAs and the PFAS, and people know more about that than I do. that really made, okay, no one wants to come in town more because we don't trust the drinking water. Believe it or not, a dentist office closed because they
Nadie quiere venir más a la
did
ciudad
not
porque no
want to have the
confiamos en
water
el
being
agua
squirted.
potable, lo que
It
le
would
sonó el
rinse your mouth out
consultorio
because it's
de un
contaminated with
dentista
PFAS,
cerró
PFA, dentist office
porque estaba
closed,
contaminado.
drugstores closed. It's just
Eh,
a huge
cerró.
economic
Esto causó
downturn to us for many reasons. Hello, Joe. Um, so it's, Candace, you made a mention about the distressed towns, and look, I love my town dearly, but I'm not going to BS anybody here and say we're not distressed in many ways, and we spoke about that, so I won't go in. So this is where we need government's
Esto
help.
es, por eso necesitamos aquí
We need,
la ayuda del gobierno.
every one
Necesitamos
of you, DEP and such, to help our town
cada
recover.
uno de los
You
miembros
know,
del
we're,
departamento
they know
para
about it, and I won't
ayudar a
go on, but
nuestra
we're
ciudad.
replacing millions of dollars. We have to build a new
Pero
water treatment.
estamos reemplazando
The filter systems are
millones de
$250,000 a
dólares. Tenemos
year,
que
and
construir
that's
un
at
nuevo
today's
tratamiento de
prices.
agua, así que
This
por lo
town cannot
tanto,
afford that, and I'm not going to
los
speak for
sistemas de
Deptford's or
construcción
Mount
cuestan
Royals and East
$1,400,000 al
Greenwich's
año y
and
esos
all,
son los precios
but I
actuales. O sea,
just
que no
know
puede permitirse eso.
we are at the bottom of the economic thing, and we want to lift our town back up, but we need help. We need serious help to get all that done, along with and I talked to them about the whole recycle things. We need you. We need you. We need, and I'm going to be honest with you, once that there's money coming to help maybe build these facilities and replace the filters, because I have a borough hall that needs to replace at $18 million. It's contaminated with mold. We should have been out of there 2 years ago. I can't do all these things unless I get help from the government, whether it be state, federal, county, whatever. So once again, I implore, really consider Paulsboro with all of our issues. None of them Paulsboro created. We don't need money to build skyscrapers. We just want to make Paulsboro a vibrant town where people want to stay here and live. That's the key. And my good friend Tamika's here. She wants to, she come back from Paulsboro. She could have, as a retired Navy captain, she could have been anywhere in the world with any job. No, she's back in Paulsboro, wants to help Paulsboro out. And that's what we want to keep people here. But we can't do that without the help of your organization and people that you put on the ground to help mayor like me when I was mayor, to lead me. And Vince is here, and I thank Vince who guided me so much about grants and help and grant, this and that. Your organization, Mr. Commissioner's done a great job with that, and I hope that stays up where you have that on the ground support to other mayors of the distressed communities, because we don't have secretaries and all kind of staff. We're the like I said, the funeral director, the fire chief, the councilman, the mayor, all them titles. Okay, and we don't have all that time. So thank you for being here once again, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
So just as we wait for Tamika to get to the microphone, she fast. So, Mayor, thank you again. You and I don't know each other well, but I've known who you are for a long time. Because you may not remember this. We were both a little bit younger when that rail car or series of rail cars went off the tracks and into Mantua Creek. I was at that time one of the lawyers here on the ground representing many members of this community, trying to get Conrail to clean up their mess. One of the hardest cases that I've ever fought in my legal career as a victims' rights lawyer before becoming a public servant. And I understand very clearly the needs that you are identifying, and we'll talk about them throughout this evening. I just wanted you all to know that I am no stranger to Paulsboro. I understand that sometimes it can feel like the state government is a stranger to South Jersey. Your DEP is not. And we'll talk more about that throughout the course of this evening.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. As the former mayor said, good evening, everyone. My name is Timmy Burnett Lindsay. I am a retired Navy captain, having served 30 years, and I did come back home. So it's good to be back home here. But there are a few things that I have experienced throughout my career, being able to come home and do things. The first is in 2009, I remember receiving a lot of calls of peers asking me for help. Why is this? It's because they had parents that were all of a sudden stricken with some type of rare diseases, cancer, kidney ailments, whatever. And in 2008, I lost 3 relatives, right, in Paulsboro of cancers. So people were like, Timmy, what is going on in the area? What can we do? And I was like, to my knowledge, and this was me, doing my own research to the EPA, there's nothing that we can do because the levels that we live in is actually above the standards in which we can report. So that became an issue to me, and I kept watching. I'm very proud of Paulsboro, and I am glad to say that I moved back home. The other issue was the train derailment and having everything happen to him. And I was in the area. It happened to me my class reunion weekend when that was happening. And we could see the smog, and everyone was saying it's no problem. It's no problem. Like, how can you say something that you can see is no problem? So, and it's very disheartening to hear the trouble effects. And Commissioner, I will submit to you that even though we had these problems, we are still looking for a system of accountability, a system in which we know that we can talk to you and that we can be assured that we're going to the United States to make sure that someone is actually taking our problem, because we're at rock bottom. We're at rock bottom right now, and we have to move up. We have lost our vibrant community. We've lost the quality of our school system. We've lost major businesses because of where we are. And unless we take care of all 3 of them at the same time, and that's what I'm here to do through my personal business, Anchor Leadership Solutions, unless we take care of all these and we get the community involved to take these actions, to take advantage of these listening sessions, to actually be part of the community and the rework and the grants that we have to seek, we will not be anywhere better 5 years from now. So we need to move now. It's going to be a long marathon process, but we have to stick with it if we love Paulsboro as much as we say we do. Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara Ladd Murphy. I lived in Paulsboro for 48 years until I downsized and moved to Gibbstown. I wasn't going to bring this up, but since the train derailment did come up, this is what I'm going to start with. I worked in the Paulsboro Public School District. I was told to remain in the school, and now I've been diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, which is terminal. For people that don't know, it's scar tissue on the lungs. I'm at the mild stage right now. I used to be a soprano and I can't sing anymore. I am a caregiver to my brother, whose wife is deceased. I receive no compensation. We did have a law firm. My former union president is here. I pushed to get the law firm, never thinking that at 62 years old, I am possibly going to die sooner. I had no health problems. I actually went to the doctors today and was told that I am not the only one. She just had a patient from Paulsboro who passed away of cancer. The wife now has cancer. I love this town. People know me. I mean, graduated in 1980. I was for everything. It's very difficult to know that I'm going to leave my son probably. We don't know. I could be 1 year. It could be 20 years, but it's not going to be a pretty death. I'm going to suffocate. So, these chemicals are destroying us. My father was a retired lieutenant commander in the Navy. I know a lot about this area, and he was from New England. He traveled the world. I had uncles that were farmers in Repapa, worked at the plants. My dad retired, worked at the plants. My grandfather worked at DuPont's. I know about the caves and all. My dad would be 115, had me after he retired. We are in dire straits. My one thing that I was coming here for is for the sluice gates down in Gibbstown, Logan, whatever you want to consider it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, what can your department do and is willing to do to help us? It's not only going to affect us here in
Can
Gibbstown.
can you
Yes.
explain for others here what
sluice gates are-
how you would characterize? I don't want to do it for,
Yeah, yeah.
what would you characterize what
Okay.
this, what you think the sluice gate problem is, so everybody
Okay.
knows? Okay.
The sluice gates were built in the late 1800s by farmers in order to help the flow of water and all. I know this to be fact because of my uncle. I also know that they were never kept up after these farmers passed. Army Corps of Engineers come in, messed it all up. They did not know what they were doing. Farmers aren't, wait a minute, country bumpkins. They knew there was a reason there for that to be there. And with what's going on now, they're bickering over who's going to pay for the fuel, who's going to do this. Well, that's not just up to Gibbstown residents or Paulsboro residents. This, if it breaks, is going to go all the way to Glassboro.
Mm,
So we've already got a contaminated river, which I played in when I was growing up. And all the groundwater we know from Solvay and everything. I have 3 water filters in my house. I get them changed continuously. Just like now, I have to have more air purifiers put in just so I can breathe. And when those gates break or this continual flooding that's occurring, my sump pumps never ran until these astronomical rains and stuff that we've been having. That's a real concern that this water is just going. Our land is contaminated now. And how are we ever going to get any of this back? We don't even have farms anymore because farmers are being forced to sell. We talk about the solar and the heat coming.
mhm.
Well, if we had farmland again and we didn't have all the warehouses and all, I know we need tax dollars, but we also need to use common sense. We aren't the Garden State anymore. We really aren't. I know about all the Superfund sites and everything. I really, really hope that you can assist us with getting these things accomplished. It's not going to happen in my lifetime or your lifetime. It's going to be a process. They have done things over the years.
Yeah.
But when you now have people coming forth saying they're dying, I'm dying. I'm living with that.
So first of all, Barbara, ooh, that was loud. I want to thank you for your bravery, for standing up and for sharing your heart with us.
This is really the first publicly, and I've known for about 6 to 8 months that I have let people know.
I'm so sorry, truly, but I thank you. I thank you for bringing some context of your personal experience to this conversation. You know, when the derailment happened last year in East Palestine, and it's shown a light on a number of really troubling things about the way that we put hazardous materials in transit in this country. Neither you or I are going to solve that overnight, right? But for us all to be talking about what the problem is, right, is really, really important, because all of you assembled here today have a tremendous amount of power to send an important message about the need for rail safety reform in this country, right? The fact that there is a chain of responsibility with respect to the good care of hazardous materials on our railways is a loophole in our laws on a national level. The Department of Environmental Protection, right? We We clean up the mess after it happens, right? We make those who are responsible for the mess clean it up after it happens. But what about not making a damn mess to begin with, right?
Yep.
And that is what this community has known for 14 years since the derailment that occurred here, right? And nothing occurred in the 14 years to advance rail safety. And then we have East Palestine. How many more do we need, right? Right? Sending a consistent message in times that are not crises are incredibly important, right? There are many representatives I know, Liv's boss and Liv's boss's boss, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency and the president of these United States are advocating for improvements in rail safety and closing these loopholes so that we're not just chasing down the folks to clean it up after the mess is made, right? But that message needs to be loud and resounding, that all of our communities deserve greater protection, greater safety precautions on the front end, more routinized inspections, safer facilities to house hazardous materials, more containment, more readiness for communities to respond. Just a few ideas, right? But there are lobbies who stand opposed to that, right? And we all have to stand up and say what we believe our communities deserve. You can count on me, Governor Murphy, to be partners in that advocacy, no question. And where we can stand up and hold folks accountable, you can bet that we will. Because that's exactly what we're doing in the case of the PFNA and PFAS contamination that has polluted aquifers in this region, right? I was hired for the purpose of suing companies like Solvay, right? And we have, and we will continue to pursue the other responsible parties for this regional contamination, right? So that we can make sure that communities like yours have access to the funding to make the water infrastructure improvements that are necessary. So you can count on us to be partners in that continually.
Good evening. Thank you. So my name is Carmen Zampaglione. I live in Greenwich Township. On the level, I'm really happy to see that we're finally getting proactive and not reactive with our causes in the area. In 2016, I ran for a seat in township. And while I was knocking on doors, I was in the lower part of Gibbstown, and a lot of the people, and you listen to people, complained about their sump pumps running, the ditches are overflowing, something's not right, something's not happening. So from that point on, I was never elected. I stayed with it. I've taken the bill to the assembly floor. It now sits in limbo. It was pulled off the ticket at the last minute, January 8th. To give you a little information on what's going on,
Can you just tell us what bill you're talking about here?
it's Senate side is 104, S104. It's called the mosquito bill.
Mm,
And I'll tell you why I call it the mosquito bill. What we've had occur is now we're talking tonight about an occurrence that hurt people that already happened.
mhm.
What I'm going to talk to you about right now is about an occurrence that could be devastating to not just Paulsboro and Gibbstown, but Logan Township.
Mm,
We have dikes that need to be looked at. We have, and see, you can't blame the county.
Yeah.
And you can't blame a town like Paulsboro or Gibbstown that have only 8,000 residents to come up with the money to handle the infrastructure damage that has occurred in 40 years of neglect. Now, our ditches were considered the faucet of Gloucester County and Gibbstown. We have 3 main ditches that run through our township. And these ditches, in between them, have 3 stages of channels that run perpendicular to them. And they were put there on purpose by, as Barbara mentioned, in the 1700s, King George was growing salt hay on those open fields. So those channels would take the relief of pressure of overflowing water. That water comes as far as 15 miles away. So there's maybe 5 or 6 or 7 townships that deliver their watershed to our township. Now, at the time, we had the people that lived in our township would maintain it in certain families. It was 3 families that lived on Floodgate Road. One gentleman here, Calvin Fizzler, he lives on Floodgate Road. Me and him, we were just up at the sluice gates today, seeing if the water was flowing. So to make it short for you, I can go on all night about it. These ditches were maintained up until 1974. The dikes broke 3 times since the 1800s. They've been repaired, but now we have one that's looking pretty bad on Second Ditch. But that's not the problem. The problem is, in 1974, DuPont shut their doors, and the financings to the study that was going on in those ditches, because of, to me, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it was important to them to be involved in those studies to make sure them ditches are flowing to the river. Now, what happened was they shut their doors, the financing dried up, and nobody was allowed to touch nothing. You can't, oh, you're going to cause a problem. So the people that worked on them, the families that worked on them ditches to make sure we were safe, were no longer allowed to put hands on them. So in 40 years, you got to picture this and then I'll stop. The ditches have overflowed. They flow out, they kill trees, right? Then when the tides come back and the gates open down at the river, the water's got to draw this way and then down the channel. Well, over the 40 years, those channels from 8 foot to 2 foot to 4 foot. So what you're getting is a slow process. You got 5.5 hours to empty that water on this side of it in the township into the river. And what we're getting is all this rain and the wind, the tides pushing up against our gates, and it's not going as low because we have a large amount of water. So they installed pumps. But no, that's as she
Who's the
told me.
they?
The county assisted us to install pumps. The Army Corps of Engineers designed and put the new sluice gates in. Beautiful thing. We don't know if they're working properly, and I'll tell you why.
In what year did they do that?
19, what was it? When did they complete that? 2003? 2003. So the point I'm getting at is, you know, I went to the township, I spoke to them. I went to this is all from 2016 to present date. And I went to the county, and Commissioner DeSilvio's here tonight. He wasn't a commissioner then, but I spoke to people at the county, and I even talked to people at the state. And I said to him, look, there's a problem here and it can happen. So this kind gentleman from the state said to me, you know, and the mosquitoes were another problem. We didn't even talk about that. You figure when you have laying stagnant water,
Sure.
you increase your population of mosquitoes, it becomes a health hazard.
We've got someone on Zoom asking you to speak into the mic so we can hear.
I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
thanks.
Okay. So with that said, I spoke to this gentleman in the state and he said to me, Carmen, you have every bit of a problem and everything you're saying is correct. But the problem is you go in and you dredge those ditches, you're going to get problems because, oh, you just like they did out in the middle of the river. They don't want to contaminate the river because you're dredging the ditches, right? Oh, you can't do that. Okay. Well, you can't touch the beavers because they're an endangered species. Get permits, you can control them, but there's a problem. So here we are in this mess. So he says to me, the only way that supersides that issue is a human risk issue. And mosquitoes will kill you with West Nile. There's a bunch of them. Now, we have a mosquito problem. So I wrote a bill called the Mosquito Bill with Assemblywoman Beth Sawyer. It made it all the way to the state assembly. It went through committee. It was a bipartisan bill that was passed. Bill 58, I'm sorry, A5443. I have it. I'll make sure I give it to you before I leave. It's on my
We
phone.
can, you just
Look
gave
it
me the numbers. We can look them right up. You don't worry yourself.
Yeah, I don't think the numbers are right because
Oh, okay.
I'm ahead of myself. So anyway, with that said, I feel for the people in Paulsboro because the accident that did occur is what happened. But I'm here to talk about what we can fix before it happens. I'm fortunate. I live on the second highest piece of ground in Gibbstown, not the first. So if a major flood occurs, I might be one of the last families that has to evacuate their home. So the point I'm getting at is I appreciate the fact that you folks came out here tonight and now we're starting to become proactive instead of reactive on our lives. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, Carmen, thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, a couple of thoughts. And Carmen, if you wanted to leave your information back with Christina or Rayhana, if you raise your hands back there, if you wanted to leave your contact information with them, we can follow up with you. But a couple of thoughts that I'm wondering off the top of my head are whether there has been a watershed management plan for the watershed management area. And it may be multiple areas that are covered by the different gates and ditches that you've mentioned. And if there hasn't been a watershed management plan, one of the things that we could do is look at how the DEP could help either the county or a combination of the municipalities that are implicated, because you've got Gibbstown and Logan on each of those two main stems, and then you've got all the tribs on each side. If my memory serves, one is technically in Gibbstown and one is in Logan. And if we got them together for a watershed management plan, a watershed management plan would identify for you where you need it, where there are opportunities to do different types of enhancement, whether those enhancements are nature-based, improving the riparian area around the ditches, or if there are infrastructure-based improvements, that require a public works engineering solution. But you have to be able to plan these things out on the front end, right? Because having a sound plan is often it opens the gateway to funding opportunities, grants that might be available from the US EPA, from the NJDEP, from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, because this area of the state is part of what we call our coastal zone management area, right? And so could be entitled to funding under the Federal Coastal Zone Management Act, right? And so these are the types of things that we could help analyze and have readiness is everything, right? Being ready to take advantage of funding opportunities, putting the forethought into it. Every year when a CZM grant opens from NOAA could be another opportunity to make investments in nature-based solutions or in civil works engineered infrastructure. Those are just a few ideas off the top of my head. My point being that this is not hopeless, right? But you need help, and we can help you to begin sowing the seeds of a plan that will take some effort on part of the county government, the municipal government, the state government, but it's doable. Those types of plans exist in other parts of the state, and we can help bring one to fruition here. I don't know, Liv, if you have any thoughts on that from the EPA side.
Yes, certainly. That sounds a little more amplified. Okay. So I can share that the federal government has a number of programs. First, that we just give as the federal government, we give support to the state government through state revolving funds. And under the bipartisan infrastructure law, we've increased the amount of money that we've awarded to states to help support the work that New Jersey DEP and other state environmental agencies are doing. So certainly with everything that Commissioner Lazaret is laying out in terms of some of the state resources, the federal government is a partner in supporting those efforts. In addition, we do have a number of funding sources available under the Inflation Reduction Act. One of those that's really, there's a significant window of time right now are community change grants. It's $2 billion of funding that's being given out nationwide, where community-based organizations can reach out to the federal government to get fiscal support for projects that consider climate justice issues. And a lot of what's being described would fall under the umbrella of those resources. So I'll share a website that you can go to for more information. The website is epa.gov/inflation-reduction-act. Again, it's epa.gov/inflation-reduction-act. And you can find community change grants information there. We host TA sessions. It stands for technical assistance. I don't want to start talking in acronyms. Technical assistance sessions every Tuesday, I believe at 3 p.m. Is that right, Drew? Thank you. I knew he knew. So if you want to see some of our archived webinars on that, they're available on our website. And of course, they're also going to be happening on an ongoing basis. That funding is available until November 21st of this year on a rolling basis. So if you happen to look into it, it's something you want to apply for. If you apply initially and don't get it, get feedback on it, and you still have time to reapply. So just sharing that as some resources that are available. So thanks.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Brandis Irving, and I'm from Logan Township. That's where I live by myself right now. I grew up in Woodstown, New Jersey, born in Bridgeton, New Jersey. I currently just turned 33 last week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Let's see, I graduated from Kingsway Regional High School in 2009. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And my mom and dad, of course. And I do have a couple questions, but let's see where I want to start. First of all, I would like to say in reference to the first 3 or 4 people that spoke, I think we could work together, like everybody that's here. You know, if we could come up with like maybe a donation type of funding thing. I have a lot of ideas. I'm actually a photographer, videographer. I just went to the Hill Movies theater today and checked them out. And you know, to get into there, they said that I would have to take a class like from maybe like Rowan or Rutgers, Camden. So I'm thinking about that. I'm interested in the grants as well. So I would like to go on that line and probably maybe have some guidance with that because I do have a disability. So I would like some help for that if possible. I mean, I was a gymnast years ago, and I just went back to Starbound Gymnastics in Bridgeton. Yeah, they're in Bridgeton, New Jersey. They're like on Landis Avenue. They had another gym on it's like 5 minutes away from there, and they had a storm issue. Like basically, like what happened was their building caught fire because a lightning bolt hit their building, and that I had quit by then. So that is, I don't know what that has to do with, but that's a possible climate issue, but that was years ago. But they now have a new gym, and I'm thinking about also doing like sewing for like sewing leotards. In reference to the climate stuff and the weather and pollution and all that. I've been interested in for like about 4 years because of my ex-boyfriend, who I'm still cool with. 3D concrete printing. Have you ever heard of it?
3D concrete printing?
Yes.
No, I can't say that I am.
Okay, my ex-boyfriend actually got me into it. It's basically a printer that prints concrete layer by layer.
Hmm.
And you can create 2-story buildings or even bigger buildings like this, or I would say like resorts type of buildings. And you can create waterfalls, benches, logos for colleges, all different types of stuff. So like in reference to rebuilding, where is he? Right, the mayor, right? That's mayor. I'm sorry, what's your name again? Gary Brandis. My name is Brandis. In reference to rebuilding, I am interested in getting a grant possibly for 3D concrete printing. So there's 2 companies I've been looking at. There's one in Utah that will train you if you have to go to them. I remember calling them. They did say since I live in Jersey, all the way in Jersey, that I can just go for 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, because instead of 4 weeks, because I live all the way over here. But I am more interested in the one in Florida, who's based in China, because one, their machines are more precise, or whatever you want to call it, because their buildings are more beautiful, I would say. And you know, China is way ahead of us, right? You would say.
Depends on in what.
Okay. I would say in construction, maybe, I don't know, or building or technology. But yeah, they'll come to you, like they'll come here and train you. And I would say I would need like a small team, because for 3D concrete printing, you only need a smaller team because the building is just stronger. You look it up online, look it up on Google if anybody's interested. 3D concrete printing.
I will do that.
Yeah, so the one in Florida is called winsun.com, winsun.com. The one in Utah is called mudbots.com, mudbots.com. And I need a team. I mean, I'm looking for a team. I'm welcoming anybody in here that's willing to work hard and put in the effort to rebuild Paulsboro and Gloucester County, or all of New Jersey if we need to.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. There's a lot of materials that we have on the back table here about ways.
I did take all that.
Wonderful.
papers.
Ways to engage with DEP, how to identify grant opportunities, and how to, there's some also information there about the types of job opportunities that are available
Yeah.
within our own organization. But thank you so
Okay,
much for
yes,
sharing.
yes, thank you so much. Thank
Take
you.
care.
I just also wanted to briefly share with you, we have an organization that is providing technical assistance to navigate a lot of the federal grants that are available. I only named one, the community change grants, but there are many more. And so they're called Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers. Yep, go on, lean on the table. And so, I'll give you, you don't have to write that one down. I'll give you a website. This is for everybody. We have 2 Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers in Region 2 of EPA. One, the lead agency is called We Act. They're based in Harlem, but they are also covering all the way down here. They have a whole steering committee that also includes the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance and other New Jersey partner organizations. Their website is weact.org/TCTAC. It stands for Thriving Community. It stands for Thriving Community Technical Assistance Centers. And so you can go there and get all kinds of resources for the grants that are available, for getting SAM and DUNS registrations, like all the little bricks and mortar things you need to apply for federal money.
But I do have to get my DOT again, and I probably, if I need passengers, I'll have to probably get that again.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can go there and see all the resources that are available to help you get going. And that's for everybody.
Hi, my name is Tracy Kolb. I've been a Paulsboro resident for 35 years. And I'm up here today because, well, I know the mayor had spoke a lot about a lot of the downfalls that came along with Paulsboro and everything. But what happened was, we're also experiencing now a downfall with the whole recycling issue. What happened was, unfortunately, we were told we ain't able to receive curbside service as far as picking up our recycling, and they had placed a facility at the other end of town. It wouldn't be that bad, but unfortunately, with the lack of transportation and the disabled and the seniors, many of these people are being affected. We are in a 2.6 mile size town. So just to show you, we are limited to our hours, which are 3 hours on Wednesday and 4 hours on Saturday. But this is just a picture of just the local people that are just within a 1 block radius getting a recycle. So you can imagine with somebody a quarter mile away.
And these are pictures from the drop off of the recycling,
Yes,
right?
within,
Just so
within,
I'm just describing it for everyone.
within,
So-
yeah, within the past 2 weeks, as you can see, you have children helping their mother with a basket. You have people carrying 2 trash cans or 2 loaded bags. And that's just right there. Literally, I have been out there counting cars and people walking. We had no more than 8 walkers in one day that visited that facility. Right here is just what I was able to collect on people that cannot make it to this recycling bin. Whether they're seniors, whether they're disabled, whether they're a mother with 2 kids that has to try and drag 2 kids all the way a quarter mile across town to get to this bin on a Wednesday night after working all day and have to cook her kids dinner, or on a Saturday when her kids have sporting events and can't get it. So what's happening is we're winding up with this problem where we have trash that is piling up everywhere. The way these people are solving this problem is they've been dumped in abandoned buildings. They've been dumped in the woods. They've been taking the trash over to neighboring towns that they have relatives and friends just to get rid of it. And some of it's just compiling on the side of each residency. Same thing. We have an ordinance about vehicles and having things secured within the vehicle when driving. As you can see from this picture, we have full cans with no lids on them riding down the road. We have people putting their recycling material on top of their vehicles. People driving with their minivan with the door wide open. I just, everything about this is just wrong at this point. And we really need some type of solution for all these people. And you're more than welcome. These are copies if you want to take them. But these are all the people that are affected. And I didn't even reach, I want to say, maybe a quarter of the town. And some people just don't want to come forward because of the simple fact that they're afraid. They got relatives on council or whatnot, or they've lived here long enough that they don't want to put their name on here. But they'll verbally tell me, but it just won't be in writing. Thing is I could understand. I mean, right here, even here, it says user doing the initiative program. So for our recycling, all the numbers that we do, apparently Governor Murphy's given back 60% on that for the cost, from what I've read on it. Whether that's still going on or not, I'm not sure, because, but
I think maybe what you might be referring to is that the DEP provides funding to communities
Communities.
based on the amount of recycling that they record.
Yeah.
And so it varies from year to year, but there's some general consistency to it. I'm not sure about the 60% number, but I think that might be what you're referring to.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referring to. The thing is a lot of this stuff that is occurring and the reason we were having problems with the recycling, there was a lot of communication lacking in this town. We had correspondence going out in English alone when I had to go have some of these made up because we have Spanish speaking people in the neighborhood. I had people that couldn't read, that I had to read the questionnaire to them. I had asked, I had did an open record to see how many violations were given out before this rollout and who was, if there was anybody consistently being violated and how is that being addressed. There is no record keeping of it. They don't even have a database for it. We have new people coming in. They're coming in from PA. They're coming from Newark. They're coming from New York. They're coming from different counties that all do different recycle in different ways. But when they're moving in, and even if they're a renter, they're not being provided with by the landlord the material to know how to do it properly.
Right.
So basically, it's no fault of their own.
So I'm hearing two different things, and I have at least one suggestion. So the two different things that I'm hearing is because of the constraints that exist locally, and maybe the former mayor can speak to this or probably has throughout his time, with respect to because of limitations with respect to picking up curbside. There's the recycling drop-off issue, and there, I would imagine, is a desire for there to be curbside pickup, of course. That is sensible. I think, and the mayor can correct me here, that there was limited responsiveness to bids that the town had put out to retain a hauler. But be that as it may, the second issue that I'm hearing is with respect to sort of compliance with what the local rules are. And your comment that there may not be consistent communication with what numbers you're supposed to recycle, how you're supposed to do it, where you're supposed to keep it, so on and so forth. One suggestion that I have there for you, and that you should tell people far and wide about, is an app you can download on your phone called Recycle Coach. Because Recycle Coach will geolocate you, right? Because New Jersey's recycling is complicated, y'all. It is complicated. It's too complicated. Because every different locality recycles in a different way. And maybe in your town, you do numbers 1, 2, or 4, but in my town, I do 1, 4, and 6, right? And you don't know, maybe it's clears only, and you can't have the dyed plastics, right? But Recycle Coach will find where you are, and it will tell you exactly what the rules are, right? Recycle Coach is something that the state of New Jersey pays for, right? So that everybody can have access to. You download it. The profiles are uploaded for all the different communities, and it gives you notifications about where you can recycle what on what days. And it's a really valuable resource. The one thing that we could look into is the availability of local, in addition to the tonnage grants that are provided, there's also recycling development research projects that the DEP funds, and perhaps there's an opportunity to do some study with an academic partner on what is the right kind of recycling setup for a small community like this.
Well, right now they have trailers that are kind of boxed in that they're just dumping the stuff in there. Technically they could probably hire 2 guys and pull it around town and collect it. Even last month, I mean, they only did 7.76 tons of recycling. All right. I calculated maybe 10% with all the walking traffic and the driving traffic going through that facility. Only 10% of Paulsboro is actually recycling at this point. That's an issue. Not to say there's nobody has made any reasonable ways for these people that can't make it there to get there. I know they're basing everything off of Alloway Township, which is a rural area.
Mm,
Then people buy them places knowing there's no trash, there's no public water, and
Yeah.
there's septic, okay? This isn't that community. We're 2 miles long. There's no reason that we can't have some type of pickup, at least for the people that need it.
yeah. Yeah. I
And
hear
the
you.
same thing,
Yeah.
you're doing 7 hours. If you look at any other township that is doing this, they're open at least 4 days a week, with 2 of them being 8-hour days.
Yeah.
But it's still, we have the issue of people walking with trash cans a half a mile, a mile. You can't do it.
Yeah, one of the points of follow-up that we can talk with EPA about is try to identify what are some of the upcoming opportunities that the municipality may be able to apply for to improve recycling programs. I don't know them off the top of my mind, off the top of my head right now, beyond the tonnage grants and the recycling research grants. But that is something that we could look at together, unless you know some off the top of your head you want to mention. But then we can come back. Usually what the way it works is, the state or the federal government will provide opportunities for the local government to then calibrate the services for people. So we can come back to the mayor, to the council with some suggestions.
Yeah.
Liv,
we-
did you want to throw any thoughts out there?
Yeah, I do actually there's one recycling grant that's available under the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Okay.
So it's a significant pot of money. We call it SWIFR for short. It's SWIFR, and it stands for Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling. And the funding is available to communities, to local governments for situations like what you're describing, where there are gaps in the infrastructure to facilitate recycling.
Okay.
So it gives fiscal support to help build up those kinds of programs. So it'll be available while there's the bill money available, which is set to be till fiscal year 26. So there'll be like ongoing announcements until for the next 2 years. So it's something you could look into a little bit more also. And
Yeah,
we'll also
great.
do the follow-up.
Yeah, so we'll just connect our respective offices. Liv and I will have the team put together a little bit of a menu, and we'll share that with the town and folks that are in attendance here, so that we can help you identify what those opportunities are, right? And if there is an infrastructure gap funding, stopgap funding that can be provided, or if there's a better way for us to make resources available from these 2 state grants to the
Yeah, because I'm
to the
sure you
town as
don't
well.
want 90% of our recycling winding up in the city dump rather than being recycled.
right. Well, and that's nothing. None of us want that.
Yeah.
But try to help meet the needs of the community that are constrained. See what resources we have to bring to bear. Thank you very much,
Right, thank
Tracy,
you.
for sharing this.
Brandis, I'm gonna
Oh, they're just
ask you, there's a few people
there are
waiting
just a
in
few other
line.
people waiting in line. If you
Go ahead.
We'll take the person in the green shirt next.
Start up like this. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Eric Singleton, Paulsboro resident, member of the Sons of Italy, local business owner, community activist, and most recently member of Borough Council.
Okay, I thought I read that, and so I was wondering where that. Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome. I'd like to thank the three of you for being here tonight. It's definitely, it's great to have a place to voice concerns. I have a bunch of questions, but based on questions that Ms. Culp just asked, I just have a couple of quickie ones, and then I'll get into my longer ones. So since recycling varies by town, what's to prevent Paulsboro from making the only thing that we recycle is bottle caps? And that's the only recycling we're going to pick up.
I think the Solid Waste Management Act would tell you probably can't do that. Also, bottle caps are generally not recyclable.
Absolutely. I'm using that as an example. So you're using an example of some towns recycle 1, 2, and 3 plastics. Some do 1, 4, and 6. Why doesn't everybody have to do everything is kind of what I'm getting at with that. So if there's some discretion to it, how much discretion can we exercise over what we actually collect?
You can exercise discretion based on the type of facilities that are within your solid waste management area, which is usually countywide. But that's off the top of my head and I could be getting it wrong, but we can get back to you with that detail. What makes those different, what makes it different based on locality is oftentimes the available technology in the region, more or less.
Okay, so another example
Like
would
some have
be-
optical sorters, some don't have optical sorters, right? And so the more advanced technology that is available in the recycling at a recycling center within your reach, and it's in certain miles, then you can recycle more things. And then the more tonnage, the more dollars you get from the state.
Mhm.
It's carrots and sticks. It's not just a mandate.
Where it feels like it starts getting iffy is recycling is federally mandated. It's privately performed, and then it's also federally punished. So if we don't do what the private industry tells us we have to do, then we get in trouble by the government, which seems a little bit hinky, but we can come back on that one. So
It's
what,
an interesting formulation. I'm not sure it works exactly that way because it's based on what what technology is available. And typically the counties, as they're establishing their solid waste management areas and facilities, they may contract certain services to a private recycling company. And then therefore there may be more or less capacity associated with the technology of that company, if that makes sense.
it does.
But I'm going to get a flow chart about how this works and share it back with this group since recycling is such a salient issue here.
is.
So I'll make sure that we get that back to you.
So another thing that I read on the internet, so it must be true, is that glass, well,
you.
if we're collecting whole bottles and recycling whole bottles, that's great. But as soon as you start taking by the garbage can and throwing them into the back of a truck where they just get smashed to bits, glass actually becomes a contaminant. You get these little slivers and these little things that actually make the plastic and make the cardboard less recyclable. It turns those other items into garbage as well. I have heard rumblings that might be the case locally, but there's different people saying different things. So I'm curious how I can even go about finding out the truth about whether or not glass is all ending up in the landfill anyway.
It's usually based on the particle size. And again, it can tend to be technology dependent, kind of what falls. Have you ever been to a massive recycling center where you see how the sorting happens?
I've seen videos.
I would recommend it. It's fascinating. But it often depends on the actual size of the piece of plastic, right? Or the piece of glass.
Okay. Okay. So now stepping into my role as councilman, what aid does the DEP and EPA offer communities that really can't afford state or federally mandated recycling programs? How can we move up the priority list so that as I understand it right now, last year, our garbage collection cost somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000, and we got about a $4,500, is that pretty close? $4,500 stipend for recycling, which is pee-pee in the ocean.
I'm trying, I like you. I like you. So there's a breakdown between what's required of the county level and then at the local level. Right? And so typically what the DEP does is helps to facilitate through the tonnage grants, the programs at the local level. But all of this is administered through the solid waste management plan that applies more broadly, usually on a county level. But I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember how it's arranged here, if it's countywide or if you have a different district shape, but I can find all of that out for you.
Okay. So there's a lot of rumbling in town. Ms. Cole explained quite a bit of it. Basically, the solution that we found that the borough of Paulsboro can afford is to cease curbside pickup of recycling and bulk items. Focusing just on recycling, well, actually, both items are currently being collected in a facility which actually borders a waterway. What sort of due diligence would you expect from a borough in selecting a site for collecting and storing those things?
It depends on the type of waterway and the distance of the structure from the waterway, typically.
100 feet.
Rob?
I mean, the facility is, it's a house size lot.
Mhm.
And it actually borders the creek, which feeds directly into the Delaware River about 1.5 miles downstream.
It's possible that there's some kind of a permit that's necessary, but I'm not certain because it really depends on distance from the waterway. Whether that's sometimes what we call a waterfront development permit might be needed, but I can find out.
I would love to have some answers on that. Because I don't believe any such permits were actually applied for. If it turns out that we are not in the good graces of the DEP and the EPA, what sorts of repercussions should we be prepared to face?
Well, I don't know that you're not in the good graces, so I couldn't tell you that there are any repercussions. But what we probably should look at is the county waste flow plan, right? That's what we should really look at.
So we need to talk to the county.
I think that that's a good idea, but we can also look and circulate around them. Sorry, I don't have the recall of all the counties.
Sure. I didn't mean to come up
waste
here
flow
and
arrangements.
interrogate.
No, that's okay. No, and that's fine. That's fine. It's my job. I'm not complaining about it. But all of these things that you're asking, they have knowable answers, and that can be achieved quickly, right?
Mhm.
And so we can, follow up with you, and then make sure that you have the right baseline for more conversation, whether that's with the county, whether that's with the Department of Community Affairs to examine what opportunities they may be able to bring to bear, right, with respect to support for shared services, for example, if that is something that could be explored, right? So let us bring back to you a couple of things.
Okay.
Um,
One more thing, just
yep.
add on to that same list. So what would be the penalty for just ceasing to collect recycling, just treating all of it as garbage?
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was informed one day that it is not mandatory for New Jersey nor PA to recycle. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
My understanding is
that
that it's
came-
not required for residents to recycle, but it is required by the borough to offer recycling. That's how it's been quoted to me.
Because I was actually told by a public official.
Yeah, whether you recycle in your individual home is not something that the DEP is coming to your door and issuing you a citation. Let's be clear. Okay. Now, there's a difference between what the state requires versus what the locality may require. And if I don't know all of my rules by the back of my head, I certainly don't know all of your ordinances. But typically the way it works is the obligation of the municipality or the county is owed, to the state government, to all of the people that are represented by the state government. And the state then owes an obligation to the federal government. And typically it is like I said before, both carrot and stick. The state receives a certain amount of money from the federal government. We show them how much we recycle. The counties and the localities show the state how much they recycle. We give them a certain amount of money to help them, right? And the more you do, the more you get. That is a general framework, but we're going to get you all the specifics.
Awesome. And I promise to not type the line anymore. One more question. And
No, you rarely
I'll
get
take-
quizzed about
I'll-
recycling.
I'll take a
So I
45
appreciate
second answer on this one. Okay, so unrelated to recycling. So the company that constructed what we call the port, which is the facility down in the river, I'm sure you guys saw it, recently vacated by EEW. But as I understand it, the company that actually developed the port, developed and built the port, recently purchased a sizable portion of Paulsboro's remaining waterfront.
When you say company, do you mean the South Jersey Ports Corporation? Okay.
Yes. Can you, I assume that they would have done their due diligence as far as applying for permits before they actually bought the property. Can you tell me what permits they may have filed and what sorts of facilities those permits allow for? And perhaps more to the point, what sorts of facilities those permits do not allow for? And that's one I don't expect to have an answer here tonight. But,
Ooh, but I'm a former infrastructure development lawyer. So
okay.
I have an answer.
Oh, excellent. I knew I came to the right guy.
So typically, if you're expanding a facility on the waterfront of that nature, and I don't know this to be, specifically true of PMTF, the Paulsboro's Marine Terminal, but typically you would require a waterfront development permit. Depending on the nature of your activities, you may need federal permits if you're doing something in the water. But all of that information is available if the facility applied for a permit from the DEP. That's something that you'd be able to access online. We have an online permitting system. So one of the things that we can make sure that you have is our access to our website to look up those types of things. But you would look to see what type of land resource permits the facility has applied for. I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you were to search them on our website, you would see Paulsboro Marine Terminal, and then you would see, they've had multiple permits over the course of the years, right? And so you would be able to see each one and what it pertains to.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I
You are
appreciate your
welcome.
help.
I did have one other thing that I wanted to share, Mr. Councilman and everyone. I did have one other thing I wanted to share. So under the Inflation Reduction Act, one of the areas that we have monies for is for ports. So we've done quite a few feedback sessions to get some weigh-in from the public, going back to last year. And pretty soon, we'll be making an announcement about the availability of port funds. So I shared a website a little while ago. It was epa.gov/inflation-reduction-act. And on that website, you can find out about port initiative funding that will be coming soon.
Good evening. How you doing? My name is Marcus Sibley. I serve as the Director for National Wildlife Federation for New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. I also chair the New Jersey Progressive Equitable Energy Coalition. Very grateful to our leadership from the state and our EPA region who comes out for these wonderful listening sessions. I've had the opportunity to go to different sessions across the state, and it's been really interesting to see the different complexities of environmental injustices in different parts of the state. My question or comment revolves around the communication loop, because it's always interesting to see the residents come out, and thank you to everyone who did come out today. But it's interesting to see that residents come out, and it's like this is the first time they have an opportunity to share these types of things. So I'm curious from the state and regional perspective, and thank you to the mayor for being here. What is that communication loop between our governing bodies and the municipalities? And then after that piece, how are the communities brought into those communications? Because it seems like they knock on one door and then they try to come to another door. And I would say the third piece of that puzzle is I'm grateful that there's a hybrid option here, but many townships have reverted back to only in person. So how do we create a communication loop so that these concerns can get to the people who need to hear it, but also hold our municipalities accountable, because some of these residents have been telling these same stories for decades. And the fourth piece for you jump in, Sean, is how do we then bring in places like the Order of Sons of Italy and other like landmark organizations within the community to help disseminate that information? Because sometimes we do have certain hubs, but sometimes these local groups and community centers are the hubs in those communities. So 4 parts, but this is what you get paid for. So I love Sean. Sean's a good buddy of mine, so I'm just messing with him.
And Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy
I can't
New
believe
Year.
I'm saying that at the end of February and I haven't seen you yet.
I guess that's my fault. That's my fault.
But you've been running around a lot too. I've seen it. It's good to
Yes,
see you,
sir.
Marcus. I'll start with the last question because it's really it's really a fascinating one and not one that I think we've been presented with in this kind of a context before. Because as we sit up here and are taking down all of the comments and concerns we're hearing, right? Those who are willing to provide their information to us, right? That's not a requirement. You don't gotta tell us who you are, where you live, what your email is, but you do, right? If you do, then we have a way to get back to you and close the loop. And that's what we want to do, right? And so that Candace does routinely, and she can talk about how we do that follow-up with those who raise concerns, because we do, right? But the question that you're asking is, it's a step beyond, right? You've got your former mayor here. You've got at least one of your councilmen. I think I heard you have a county commissioner here as well. But what about all of those other officials who may not be here, right? Senator Berzicelli called me yesterday and he said, I didn't realize this was the same day and I can be there. I'd want to be there, right? So how do we make sure that the loop is closed there, in that all those who aren't present are. See, you got an assemblyman here too, right? But I don't know that we've thought about it that way, to make sure that all of the representatives of other parts of government that aren't here can also hear what you all are saying, because we keep this for posterity. This session, what you all have shared, it's going to be up on our website. Folks can see it and listen to it and return to it, right? They'll tell me, well, Sean, remember that one time you said blah, 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 and now you're saying blah, 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 right? We can make sure that those who aren't here today, are provided with that length so that they can listen in and hear. But of course, we can't make anybody listen and hear. Yeah. So part of the way that we do this is to work with to work with community members that are then spreading the word about it organically, right? And that is it's a sort of a methodology that we use because we want the community members to be sharing things with one another and to be joining us if they can. So one of the things that isn't always present in every community is an assortment of, community-based organizations that we know that, those community-based organizations will be sharing it, with their respective, constituencies and memberships. We try to push it out in all the ways that we can, but it's sort of necessarily incomplete, right? But I would love some suggestions on what's that? Interesting. Hmm. Hmm.
Parents portals.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. And that's really important because the office does a great job of sending out information, but the other reality is we have, seniors and we have people
Yeah.
with accessibility issues. So that's why like my request is more of an intentionality of connecting with Orders of Sons of Italy and other lodges or churches or like those staples because they get a consistent following and they have a consistent list. And I also say I make this comment because I don't expect the DP or EPA to do this. I think these are grant opportunities for other organizations to carry out because you already have so many things on your plate. I mean, I do have an organization that does that. But anyway,
Oh, I see what this is, y'all. I see what it
no, but but seriously though, like we have these expectations, but like so many community members need to be here, like you were just pointing out.
Yeah.
And all of the programs in the world mean nothing if people don't know about.
That's right. That's
And-
right.
And as I'm learning, like now I live in this area now, and I'm learning more people go to the lodge down the street or something like this regularly than anywhere else.
You're
you know?
hitting on the fundamental question of when we talk about engaging with the community, what constitutes community?
Right.
Right. And lots of different things constitute community, right? Our faith-based institutions constitute community. Places like this where you gather constitute community, right? Your municipal officials constitute community. Individual groups of neighborhood organizations constitute community. And it's, in identifying all of those stakeholders, the next time we come to Gloucester County, we do this even better, right? Because we will have made more connections. Candace, do you want to speak to that a little bit of how we're trying to build that?
Yeah, it's all about reaching out to, the leaders of the communities that we're trying to reach and asking them for their opinion and their advice and their recommendation on where we should go and who we should be talking to. So we didn't turn out everyone in the community tonight, but all of you here, my team sent me a head count. There's about 50 of you in the room tonight. That's a big deal.
One
And
of our
so-
biggest sessions.
Absolutely. That's a big deal to be speaking with and sitting here with about 50 of you all. And so like the commissioner was saying, next time we come back, maybe we can double that amount. And that all starts with you all to be a community of change agents and change makers within your community who can spread the word about events that are coming up. So a couple of people said they heard about it on Facebook and then they sent the invite to their neighbor. That's really how it happens. And so unfortunately, there's no hard and fast science to this. It's a bit of an art, and my team are studying this and we're tailoring it and molding it as we go along, and each community is different, but we need your partnership and your support. And so I think Brandis or someone earlier was talking about, hey, I would love to connect with you all tonight. And so hopefully this also serves as a point of connection for you all. Many of you are well connected and you know each other and you live close by. Maybe some of you don't. And so this is an opportunity to establish a task force, for example, where you can come together and be sharing about community events and opportunities to engage with state government. And so we welcome that. We can work with you on that. Really appreciate the individual right here who was mentioning the Office of Environmental Justice. Thank you for bringing that up. So just to announce to everyone, we have an email list where if you have any concern, that is the best way to kind of have an entry point into the department and an entry point into state government. And so that email is environmentaljustice@dep.nj.gov. environmentaljustice@dep.nj.gov. That's the best way to get connected to us, and we can follow up with your issue or your concern after that. Also, if you go to nj.gov/DEP/NJ.
EJ.
EJ, thank you. nj.gov/DEP/EJ. Or if you just Google New Jersey environmental justice, it'll pop up as one of the first links. You can sign up for our environmental justice newsletter. And so we will have a running list of all of the public meetings and hearings and engagement sessions like this for you all to make yourselves aware of. So that's the best way. And to Marcus's point about connecting community members to other points and other entities within state government, that's difficult. We do have some other state agencies here. We have a representative from our Attorney General's office. And so we extend this invitation that the DEP and the EPA are extending this invitation to all of our colleagues within state government. This is an opportunity where they can come and hear and learn from you all as well. I think one thing that we can be doing is we have what's called our Environmental Justice Interagency Council. And so this is a council where representatives, senior representatives from state departments and agencies sit on a council to talk about environmental justice. So far to this date, I'll be very candid that we have not used these engagement sessions as an olive branch or an invitation to our other state partners, but we can and we should, to tell them, hey, we're going to be in Paulsboro, we're going to be in the next county, please join us. We've extended that invitation to EPA. And of course, DEP, there's various colleagues and coworkers at DEP in the back, not to our other state agencies. So thank you for that recommendation. We can think about doing that.
And just the last part about, like, I don't know if everyone recognizes how many things that the DEP does or the EPA does. It's a lot. So I never have an expectation for you guys to be able to carry out these things. But my recommendation is always to create grant opportunities for organizations who can do that, and also create opportunities in municipalities. Because if these community members say, I would want to be a part of that working group, they will know what is the
Yeah.
best method. Is it flyers at the supermarket? Is it a text message? Is it contacting the schools and getting it put into kids' book bags? They will know because they know the community.
Yeah.
But if we can create opportunities where there's a collaboration between our departments and our municipalities, creating funding opportunities so the members can, dedicate that time, then that's lessens your, stress of getting that information out.
Yeah.
But it's also compensating people for being given their time. So
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity there, and looking forward to hearing more about it. So thank you.
Marcus,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thoughtful. Thank you.
Well, DEP always gives such good answers. I feel like I'm like, wait a minute, EPA wants to say something too.
Yes,
So I'll just say very much to what Marcus was just speaking on is exactly why the EPA has been to every single one of these sessions since Lisa Garcia has been our regional administrator. We are consistently looking for ways where us as a federal agency can have closer touch points with our communities. And so it empowers us to go back and be able to do the work that we're doing with a level of greater relevancy, and making sure what we think we're doing that's reaching communities, we can do even more. So I'll share also that EPA has a lot of listservs. Okay, if you like Google
So
EPA
true, I get them.
listserv, oh my gosh, you can probably pick dozens of listservs to be a part of. I'll just tell you one for the sake of tonight, and it's an environmental justice listserv. So if you want to join the EPA EJ listserv, you can send a blank email to join. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read this, but I'm also going to DEP send out to everybody who gives them contact information. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's join-EPA-EJ at lists.epa.gov. So I see two people writing, so I'm going to say it again. Join-EPA-EJ at lists, that's plural, .epa.gov. Okay, so that's one way. Now, another thing that I'll just share with y'all is that at EPA, our administrator, Michael Regan, has made a deep commitment to environmental justice and equity because of President Biden and Vice President Harris. They've made it from day one They issued executive orders that were giving us direction to further environmental justice and equity. To do that, we have to foster more community engagement. To further that, 2 years ago, our administrator set up a new national program area called the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, taking existing programs that were like over here in the corner over here and this one buried over here, and brought them all together and said, I'm going to elevate environmental justice and civil rights to be as important as water, as important as air and radiation, and land chemicals and redevelopment, like all these different other entities. Just yesterday, we set up an environmental justice, community engagement, and environmental review division in Region 2 of EPA. We are one of the first regions in the nation to do it. All of them are, I'm clapping. I told all the staff that for me, this is like the first day of high school because we're doing something that was just so powerful and so needed. And we're hoping to see just like the results that are going to come from it. So the EPA staff who I pointed you out to earlier, they're all members of that community engagement team. Some of them actually have the title of community engagement coordinator. So EPA, we do not have it all mastered, and folks like Marcus and all of you are going to hold us accountable, but we are definitely striving to consistently do more to be better in this space.
Very cool.
And I had my president on the line,
Mhm.
information on how to, maybe an advisory or something where they can lend their voice.
Mhm.
I had my
Yeah, we'll take your card. I think both Liv and I feel
Yes.
very strongly about youth engagement, and
Mhm.
we've started a couple of programs together that we're still doing even from different agencies. So absolutely, there's information available on that. I know we're running short on time, but I want to make sure we do get to those. I think, is everybody here like in line? All right, because I'm not going to leave until you say what you want to say, and I have maybe a response. So
Okay. You're good to go. I'm Jean Jordan. I live in West Deptford. This is not my major question, but I wanted to let you know that I found out about this meeting like a week ago from Food and Water Watch. And do you reach out when you're going to have these events to those organizations? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, I mean, I believe that you need to reach more people, and for sure, Paulsboro is a travesty, what has happened here over the years. And I've only been in this area like 8 years, but I'm already concerned about living the rest of my life here, and I'm already old. So it's like if I was 40, 30, 40, I don't know if I would live here, to be honest with you. And my concern is the water. Okay, I know you mentioned Solvay, and I can't leave here without asking you a couple questions about Solvay.
you please go right ahead. I've been
Okay.
waiting for folks to. I didn't
Yeah,
just
I
go on a
know.
whole thing.
Right. You know, we get our water reports every year, and it gives us the information for what they test for PFAS. Okay. But I know Solvay has been using other chemicals, other compounds since they supposedly stopped, with the PFAS. I think one of them is this replacement compound. It's CIPFPE
Cifeca,
and whatever.
yeah.
Okay. I can't. How do you say it?
I don't know that I said it
Okay.
right. It's a
Well-
combination of letters that probably don't mean anything good.
So one question I have is, and maybe you don't know, maybe somebody out here knows, do our towns test for that in our water? That's one question. I'm not going to wait for an answer. Two,
I'm gonna give you
I want you
answers
to
then.
answer, but it's kind of related.
Yep.
And then I learned that their scientists have found another toxic chemical that Solvay has been, they're responsible for, as far as I read, and they're calling it like third generation PFAS, where it's just as worse. It's toxic. And is that tested? What do you know about that chemical, that byproduct is one of my major questions. So, is there research being done by your organization or sampling to find out the toxicity of these byproducts? Why supposedly the PFAS-free chemicals are actually breaking down and producing PFAS again? How much is in our water, our air, the local environment, and what is it going to do to our bodies as well? Because I don't drink the water out of my spout, out of my faucet. I don't know who does here in this area. It's right.
The biggest sponge other than just taking it in through your mouth. You're absorbing it.
You're
That's
right.
why when you go past Xander's Farm, down there by Amazon on the left-hand side, they're putting in a very large water treatment plant, are they not? And what happens on top of that, they're actually putting in green sand now. Am I wrong by this or no?
I,
Haven't heard
I,
anything back.
I don't know about green sand. Yeah.
Sand right now is supposed to absorb differently than what's in there now. So I am actually like a sponge, and I do talk to a lot of people, and I absorb a lot of what's being said. And I just find it kind of hard to believe, when is everybody really truly going to have enough? When is enough where everybody keeps dying of cancer? In my opinion, yeah, cancer's been around forever. There are cures. Maybe there's cures in other countries, maybe not here. Who knows? But it's all money grab. So we're all getting tired of it, including myself. And the only reason why,
Come
now,
up
the
here
only
and
reason
talk.
why I'm kind of
Come on,
bothered is
come on.
that I have a son who's 20 years old. I have a son that's 20 years old that has problems, and I'm kind of wondering what's going on. So all this talking in here really.
Sir, can you please use the mic for people online to hear
Yeah,
you?
people online wanted to hear you, and I know there was already a line, but people online wanted to. You,
Okay,
we,
and Jean, were
we
you
were
finished?
inviting you to the mic, sir.
And Jean, were you finished? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me, you put out 4 questions. I want to try to hit them all, hit each of them. So the first thing to know about the DEP in this space is that the state of New Jersey has the strongest drinking water standards in the nation, right? And we were the first state in the nation to identify and adopt standards to get PFAS out of our water, right? And that started right in this area in direct response to PFNA contamination, which is, not exclusive to Solvay, but unique to this region. And then we have this entity called the Drinking Water Quality Institute, right? The Drinking Water Quality Institute is a board of different scientists that examine questions of drinking water quality and then advise us on what rules to set. And those standards that they advise have to be the most protective of human health that they can be, right? And so building off of the science that's done by the Drinking Water Quality Institute and another entity within the DEP called the Division of Science and Research, where there are toxicologists, some of the world's leading toxicologists on PFAS exposure are here in New Jersey, right? And we've established we established limits to get 4 different PFAS out of our drinking water, and are examining more chemical combinations as well. And what ends up happening in this kind of a space, industry can move quickly, right? Industry can often move a lot faster than government and the regulatory environment, right? But we've been fortunate in New Jersey because of the strength of our state Safe Drinking Water Act. The federal government is only now just establishing limitations on PFAS. So we have in place now these standards, right? And as additional contaminants are identified, we would set limitations for them as well. So forthcoming limitations for the replacement chemicals would be on that list, and they would be different based on your manufacturer. So for DuPont, Gen X is a replacement chemical for some of the PFAS that were manufactured by DuPont and Chemours, whereas Solvay would have another name. But this CIFPECA, sort of the way that I think of it, that is also on on our list to attain removal of. One of the things that I take comfort in is that the treatment technology that removes some of the contaminants that we've already established drinking water standards for also is shown to remove the contaminants that we have not yet set a standard to. Because effectively, we're driving the standard to the limits of the technology and what it can identify. Effectively, what we'll see is if you can identify it, you got to get it out. And on the one hand, that approach is a conservative one that protects public health to the maximum extent that we can, which is a really good thing. We've got a long, proud, bipartisan history in the state of New Jersey of having these really strong standards. But the flip side of that is it increases the cost for local governments operating treatment plants by a significant amount. And so we've got to marry our quest to improve those standards continually over time with our ability to provide funding support for the public treatment works that are cleaning our water and bringing it to our homes. And there's a couple of different ways that we're doing that. The first is through continual investments in what's called the New Jersey Water Infrastructure Investment Plan, right? Which is a vehicle that Governor Murphy created, which getting more money every year in the budget, continually in our state budget. Then we take the funding from the EPA and we put it into that pot as well. And we make that money available to local governments. And then in addition to that, we are suing all of the responsible parties that have caused PFAS contamination in the state of New Jersey. Solvay, DuPont, Chemours, 3M, Arkema, so on and so forth. We started those lawsuits in 2019, and they're beginning to show some results, right? In that we have a potential settlement that is sitting before the court right now on Solvay that will help us to provide the financial capacity to Paulsboro, to West Deptford, to the communities in roughly a 40 square mile area, so in Gloucester and Camden counties. And the requirement in that settlement is not only to provide treatment for what we know now, but for standards that will improve over time. And that's really important, right? Because we want to make sure that the mess is fully cleaned up and that you all, the residents and taxpayers and water bill payers, are not the ones left holding the bag. These companies, have really huge liabilities, right? Here in New Jersey, across the country, around the world, right? Luckily, we started early. So we stand a good chance of getting our share from them to clean up their mess. Will it be 100% of what every community needs? Probably not. But we're going to push it as damn close as we can so that we are providing relief to the residents of Paulsboro, of West Deptford, of communities like yours all throughout the state that have been plagued with this contamination because, I don't know, better living through chemistry until it isn't, until it's in our bodies, until it's affecting our kids, right? That's the job of our DEP, to stand up for you, right? And to hold folks accountable. And we're doing that. And I imagine that we'll see these settlements come to fruition and we'll get the funding to Paulsboro, to the communities all throughout this area that need it.
Yes, hi. My name is Jim Stewart. I live in National Park. I've lived there for over 30 years, raised 5 children, 7 grandchildren, and I've been there about the same amount of time that Solvay has been contaminating our water. Our borough fought hard to get the remedial through DEP. Based on the COVID situation, they were short on personnel, and then hard to get materials for putting in pumps and everything, and it took a long time. So our well system, filtration system, has been installed almost a year now, and the quality is better. But obviously, from a maintenance standpoint, we want to be sure that down the line that there will always be money to get rid of the PFAS that are in the water. And not only that, hopefully lead too, because that's another problem. I took part in a Belgian research team that came through the US a couple of years ago, where they're investigating Solvay across the world, from Italy, France. They've been doing this kind of thing all over the place.
Mhm.
And you know how difficult it is to get them to do anything. So I'm very concerned about them holding up their end of the deal, the settlement, because things have taken a long time to get to this point, and now is not the time to rush through it and finalize it if we're not sure that we're going to get the money we need for research. A lot of people have blood problems
Mm.
because it's, the Rutgers did a blood study in Paulsboro. It was great for the people of Paulsboro. Problem is, this contamination extends 40 miles or more from there. And what's going to happen with those people? The testing, blood testing is very expensive for people to get done by themselves. So is that going to be covered? But what's going to happen with all that? Will that money be in any of the settlements that have come about? I just read where there was an individual, Ken Severa, that just settled with DP, Solvay. It just came out yesterday that they're getting 1.4 million for the contamination. So I'd like to know what's going on there. We're
Can you
going to
say
be
that
part of
one more
Ken
time?
Severa, he led a suit against the DEP and Solvay. And it was just published in Law 36.
Spell that last name for me. Spell that last name for me.
Severa,
Ken.
Severa, I believe it is.
Okay.
He led a suit. He used to live in National Park a number of years ago.
Hmm.
And they just resolved it. So I'd like to know what the people of National Park are going to get out of that suit, what they're going to get from the settlement with DEP and Solvay, and hopefully we can get some answers very soon.
I appreciate your comments. I'm not sure about a lawsuit filed by a private individual, but maybe just giving a little bit of background on how these types of lawsuits work. There's a big difference between a lawsuit that an individual person or group of people may file against a
Yeah,
chemical
it's a class
company
action suit.
or someone or a responsible party for potential injuries to their health, right? That is not something that the state government would be involved in. That's an action between the individual or members of a community and a responsible party, and I'm not aware of those. But there's also what the state can bring against a polluter that has contaminated a resource that belongs to all of us, right? And so these types of lawsuits, the ones that we've filed on the part of the DEP, is they're focused on injuries to the natural resource itself, right? The injury created to the injury imposed upon the groundwater, right? And so the state serves as the trustee of the groundwater that is owned by you. Just like the trustee of a pension or of an investment account, right? That groundwater is your investment and no one has the right to pollute it, right? And we have the obligation to sue them if they do. And so we sue the polluter for contaminating your groundwater. And then we try to make sure that the funding that is received from that goes back into the community, because the community may be using that groundwater in which, much as is the case all throughout this region, where your local water providers are pumping groundwater and treating it to ultimately provide you your drinking water. That groundwater should be clean and reliable, but they've made it so it's not clean and reliable. And so we've sued them on behalf of all of you, right, for injuries to that groundwater. And we create a fund so that the communities that have to upgrade their treatment plants have a place to go to get funding. That's very separate from personal injuries that someone might allege, if that
I think
helps.
the concerns are that the funds that have been put in the settlement are going to be sufficient for all these aspects of the pollution.
Yeah, I
That's
do
my
understand that
concern.
concern for sure. These funds that we're trying to resolve through this lawsuit with Solvay are not the remedial projects that we'll undertake, right? Will not it will be specific to this region. It's not to be spread all around the state of New Jersey for everybody's PFAS concerns, right? This is very regional in nature. And so we've analyzed the different systems that would have to make treatment upgrades, right? And modeled out their costs so that we can be assured that we're providing the maximum. But there's a big difference between upfront capital upgrades, capital investment, and then the operation and treatment that's going to be required year over year over year. Are we going to get enough money for every town to treat their water forever because these chemicals never go away? No, I won't sit here and tell you that we'll get Solvay to pay your town forever, right? But we can set you on a good path, a strong one, right? And since we started first, we're going to get their money before others do.
Well, maybe we can go to another country that's not polluted.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Steinberg. I'm not a resident of Gloucester County, and I got two questions. Have nothing, well, indirectly has something to do with Gloucester County, although it's outside the borders. First thing is, you're familiar with the refinery that blew up in Philadelphia called PS Refinery. Well, I've been studying that issue for about 7 years, attending all kinds of meetings, governmental, local community meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been probably at most of the most remediation meetings. The reason why I'm bringing that up is that's, first of all, a different EPA district. That's district number 3.
Yes.
And another state. However, the interesting thing about this is that the refinery is built over the aquifer that we get our water from. I don't know if a lot of people know that or not. And it's my understanding that looking at a lot of the reports by the company that is doing the remediation, and they're under Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, as well as the EPA District 3, that those reports indicate that there is pollution in the lower level of that aquifer, which goes under the Delaware River. I'm sure you're familiar with it. A lot of people are not familiar with it. And it's a water that a lot of farmers, as well as water companies, draw from. Now, I understand that they've come up with some interesting ideas presented for final approval by the EPA. But is there any way that you, as a commissioner of the New Jersey EPA, can get involved to find out what is going on, or perhaps you already know something is going on?
It's a really good question, right? Because the air, the water, it doesn't respect a state boundary or a municipal boundary or a county boundary, right? Luckily, in these types of situations where you have a shared watershed, effectively, whether we're talking about overland flow on a watershed or a shared aquifer, when the federal government is evaluating a cleanup plan that will have an impact on either the state where it is or its neighbor. The federal government is going to go through a consultation process with the state government.
Right.
I don't know the status of this one off the top of my head, but Liv and I do this on multiple sites in New York because she's region 2, right, which is New York, New Jersey,
Right.
where they're cleaning up the Hudson River, right?
Yes.
EPA is telling GE what to do. EPA comes and asks the state of New Jersey what we think about it, if our resources are impacted. And so that's kind of the relationship that unfolds. I don't know this one off the top of my head. Liv, I don't know if you do.
I don't, but we'll follow up, for sure.
Okay, that'd be appreciated. That's the first thing that's not in Gloucester County, but affects Gloucester County. The second thing is having to do with incinerators. I'm active with a group called Camden for Clean Air, which we are fighting the permits for the Covanta incinerator, but I understand that Wheelabrator also has one here in Westville, so I guess it is something that's local. Plus, Covanta has the big one over in Chester, which is the largest incinerator in the United States, and it's horrible. It's horrible wherever there are incinerators. They're not good things. What is the policy of New Jersey regarding incinerators? I know Oregon recently passed a law, just went into effect within the last 2 or 3 months, that require daily monitoring and daily checking to see if they're meeting the state requirements. It's the most stringent thing that's ever been done in the United States. And I'm hoping and praying that at some point our legislature can do this so that you'll have the opportunity to be able to do that for us as well.
So what's interesting about the Oregon point, I'm not, it's not something that's on my radar, but in New Jersey, we have a what's called the Air Pollution Control Act, and the Air Pollution Control Act empowers us to require continuous emissions monitoring, and so does the Clean Air Act from the EPA. And we require continuous emissions monitoring at incinerator sites, right?
When you say
Now, today,
continuous,
every day.
When you say every day?
Yes, there is continuous emissions monitoring under the Air Pollution Control Act. And that is common for any polluting facility, any major, what we would call a major source of air pollution. It depends on, of course, what you're monitoring, and are you monitoring the right things? In New Jersey, we regulate more and monitor more than is typical of what we call the sort of the federal floor, right? The federal government sets rules that apply all throughout the country, and then the states can add on to those rules. We're one of the states that do add on to those rules. And so you would probably see different requirements, added pollution control, added emissions monitoring on a facility in Camden versus a facility in Chester. I don't know, Liv, if you have any other thoughts.
I can send you a copy I have a copy of the Oregon law.
Please, I would love to.
And I'd be glad to do that. Also, I want to add to that as well. Last year, I met with the fire chief of Camden, who gave me a list of problems that the city fire department had responded to, and among them are biohazards. There's also some radioactive and some chemical stops that they've had to make. This goes while the incinerator has been here since the early 90s, their records only go back to 2005, 2006. I'll be glad to include that as well and forward that over to you and take a look at it. What I have is just simply a line item, not the whole report. I understand to get the reports, it's very, very expensive. Probably cost in the order of $3,000 or $4,000. I'm guessing on the amount, but it's pretty close to it. But perhaps you might be able to get copies of those because you're a state agency.
Copies of reports from whom?
From the Camden City Fire Department. Camden City Fire Department. I will forward that over. I'll send a copy to you, Olivia, as well as you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll be getting us out of here. I'm actually the lower end of Gibbstown, Washington Street. I'm probably some of the lowest level in town. Back in 2000, we had problems with the sluice gates being reconfigured. Since then, I had to add another sump pump to the basement. So now we just constantly, my pumps are running every 5 minutes. I was just curious, they put the pumps down the river, but why won't they run them? Is that a county? Is that a town? Or what's the process with that?
Yeah, so this, I don't know if you were here earlier, one of our earliest speakers was getting into the problems with both the operations of the sluice gates, potentially the pumps, but also the increased frequency with which individual homeowners are having to run their sump pumps or experiencing their sump pumps running when they used to not. Part of that is because we're experiencing climate change here and now, right? Increased precipitation and extreme rainfall is with us, and we're all trying to navigate through that. I don't know off the top of my head about the operation of those pumps. The DEP operates a lot of flood control infrastructure all across the state. We don't operate these ones. But nonetheless, it's a knowable thing. We can find out. And now, if nothing else, it's in my brain and I want to know.
Yeah, well,
Feel free.
go ahead, Vince.
So, as far as the pumps were assisted by the county when they were installed. The, Army Corps of Engineers designed the entire, sluice gate. So at this point, we have diesel pumps down there. And, we can't run them, as they say, as the county says. First of all, because there's parts that aren't on the pumps, whether they be check valves or heaters to accommodate when the water freezes overnight. So with that problem, okay, they can't run them. Those pumps, as they say, are there for emergency purposes. Now, for
That's
example,
a county. The county is represented that. Is that what you mean?
well, the county is kind of taking the lead on it because the township, of course, can't afford it. Okay,
But does the township own the pumps?
they're claiming that the maintenance work and the PM work on them pumps is all in the responsibility of Greenwich Township.
Okay.
Okay, that was a deal, but I've never seen it in writing. I've asked for it, but I never saw it. So where we stand right now is we have 6 pumps on 2 gates. That don't run. I've seen them run in an emergency situation.
Emergency situation. I mean, we still got high water
Now-
level.
now-
Is there a process of what the water tables got to be before they turn the pumps
Now,
on?
Perfect example.
It's a
Those
great
pumps-
question. I don't know the answer to that,
Those
but it's a
pumps
great question.
Are set up for an auto run. They
Yeah.
run on diesel.
Because they're
So
meant
when
to
they get to a
prevent,
level,
are they
they
meant to
turn on?
prevent backflow or
No,
like
when
tidal
Water
flow or
outlet.
to allow an outlet?
they're on the ditch side.
Okay.
That when the gates can't handle the flow going out, for example,
Yeah.
when we had the snow melt,
Yeah,
plus all that rain, the ditches filled up and flowed over the roads.
but they're not tide gates.
We have nobody in play that's going to come out and say, okay, I'll turn the switch. Or the auto setup isn't on it. We need financial help through the township to put up a process to have those pumps turned on. For example, we were down there today. We had a good run overnight. When I say a good run, the water was flowing out. The
Maybe
moon was
about
right.
2 hours back.
We got 2 hours out of 5.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to run those pumps for a couple hours to alleviate the high levels that are on this side of the ditch. That's what we're getting at. And
I
he's
see.
absolutely
And
right.
with the high water, you got mosquitoes.
Yeah,
Duplex
yeah,
property,
Hope
like
I answered
300
that.
acres, all the trees
Yeah.
have died.
I see. So there's not a cohesive management plan. I see. I see. That's really helpful to understand.
State, because what I was finding was the proper financing to get this done wasn't coming from the county nor the township. Okay, so here we stand with a possible situation that could be catastrophic to our town.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
one of the levees, Calvin will tell you, needs to be looked at, second ditch. The levees are starting to look rough. If it breaks, the lower portion on the side where he's at, guaranteed we're going to have flooding. Or it'd be underwater.
So it's fascinating. You know, there are a number of programs and grant opportunities that are built to be responsive to situations like this. So one comes to mind. It's through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's called the Building Resilience in Communities, or BRIC, BRIC program. And I don't know if there's open solicitations now, but you know how Olivia was mentioning the Inflation Reduction Act that President Biden signed. That law also, in addition to giving EPA and Olivia and her team funding to help, it also gave it more funding to the Federal Emergency Management Agency that runs this program called BRIC, where the FEMA helps local emergency managers. So your county emergency management and your local township emergency management, they could form a grant application together for improvement, operations, maintenance of facilities like this.
Right.
I know of this happening in other parts of the state. And one of the things we can do is provide the BRIC resources back out to this. It doesn't flow through us. It flows through the Office of Emergency Management on the state level.
Here's something that you might want to write down. They did a study in 2015
Mm.
called the Delaware River Basin. There was 2 towns involved, the Hunterdon Township of Hunterdon and Greenwich Township were the
Okay.
2. I got 51 pages of it. It's over 100. It tells you exactly what the study was and how much it was going to cost by acres. They divided each one. For example,
Interesting.
ditch 3 is 55 acres of coverage. Ditch 2 is 22 and ditch number 1 is 12 acres. They had it back then in 2015. It was going to cost, you can do the math, $2 an acre, right? Multiply that times all those acreages, then and that was in 2015, just to maintain and clean up the ditches. Part of that program, that was just in labor. That didn't include none of the equipment, nor the specs of drawing it up, hiring the bosses, whatever might have to be done. It was a fascinating thing to read, but then it just died. It was never completed. No funding ever occurred. And here we sit, 2023, and it was a decent program. It even talked about the maintenance of the levees and it didn't talk about the pumps. They were an add-on due to the bad flow we were getting from the new gates.
But perhaps that's
Hopefully
a
that
starting
helps.
point,
Right. That's
for
why
looking at a program like BRIC.
it was called you got my name and address. I can give you all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's called the Delaware River Lower Basin. And it was 2 towns, Greenwich Township, and I believe it's called Hunterdon Township. So hopefully that's some information that can
It's a
help.
good
us out.
starting point. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Some of my questions are probably geared towards Gary because he was in office about when this time would happen with Solvay.
Gary, I'm telling you, you can never leave.
No, can't leave, Gary. But anyway, when did this all happen with Solvay? First of all, from West Effort? About the spill and everything. What
It
year?
dates back to the 90s, at
90s.
least.
And the water was never tested?
No, I wouldn't say that the water was never tested. I wouldn't say that.
But it was tested how often? Periodically?
Depends
Give
on
me a
what you
guess.
mean by water, like which water are we talking about? We're talking about the groundwater on the site where spills occurred? Or are you talking about water coming through people's taps? Which do you
People's
mean?
taps. Right.
So, okay. Going back to around 2009, there was a series of studies that began to unfold to identify where PFAS was being encountered, both in water systems and within our own groundwater monitoring network that the state runs to be able to identify the quality of groundwater. So at least back to that time,
209.
but possibly beforehand, I may be stretching my memory a bit.
So all that time we were drinking this water.
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Because it takes time for contaminants between the time that they are discharged, meaning that there's a spill of a contaminant, to then get into the aquifer, and then to distribute over space and time. That can take a really long time to happen.
What's a long time?
I
Give me a long time. A year?
No, way more.
Way more?
Yeah, way more. Years and years.
Years and years.
Yeah.
When were we notified in Paulsboro about this spill? Into our
I
drinking
don't know that I don't
When
know
they
that I
used
know
to be,
that.
Gary, when they were giving out water at Weiss's hardware store.
I came in beginning of 2012, so anything that.
So
happened-
you came after the first like Merrill studies.
Exactly. I
Yep.
came long after that. Let's say it came after the train wreck. So the train wreck was at the end of 2012.
Yeah.
And I don't know if nobody's here, council, that would remember this, but probably a couple years later, a few years later, I'm going to say 2015-ish, right in that ballpark. don't
Yeah.
Put me to it, is when we were getting advised, and I know I wasn't mayor at the time, so because Jeff Hamilton was mayor, so it had to be before 2016, so 14, 15. We were getting advised about the issue, the spill, or however it came about. I don't know if it was an actual spill, but all of a sudden we're being told that our water was no good, and this was right on the heels of the train wreck. So but I just don't know if there was the appropriate standards in place at the time, because I mean, maybe people from Rutgers will know this better. Remember, we don't know X part per million or this. Are we in line? Are we not in line?
Yeah.
The answers weren't forthcoming. So that started the whole thing. The press got a hold of it, and then, Paul's was giving out contaminated water. We didn't have the systems in effect, the filters, the system to pump it out. So people were doing bottled water, and then finally the agreement was put in a year or so later. I don't know when the actual first treatment plant was built.
For that first well, 7.
First well.
Yeah.
It wasn't all our wells, by the
Yeah.
way, okay? It was
Yeah.
wherever the well was drawing out of that particular part of the
Yeah.
aquifer. So
Mhm.
just in that 2015 range, give or take.
Okay. Now, going back to that time, there was a settlement, a suit with Solvay after that.
That the town pursued. Yeah. Right.
Who pursued it, or the state?
No, the town.
The town did.
Yeah.
The town did.
Did we win?
We did the agreement, and unfortunately Jim's not here. We got an agreement that if they were going to contribute and build and change filters out in the initial plant we went to. But then we found out that this was after the fact that we were using filters, like you put in the filter under your sink and expect it to last 6 months, get the rust out, and here it is, it was less than a month.
Oh, thank you, Anna Maria. No, we just want
So,
people online
I'm
to be able
sorry.
to hear you. Gary.
So that's, Solvay had to, and I don't know if they contribute 100%. I don't remember the data. But they had to build that plant and change out our filters, and they were only going to change X amount of sets out. And that should have been like 10, 15 years. It lasted 2 years because the water was way more contaminated. And the data we got through this whole settlement was wrong. And I won't,
Oh,
and
interesting.
the person that gave the data to us, the professional, wasn't really forthcoming. And I don't want to because I got to watch a lawsuit here, but we did not get the data that we should have gotten. And we went back to Solvay and said, hey, we're already through those amount of filter changes you were going to do for us. And they pretty much said that was the agreement to tough. Yes.
I see.
So it was, all this was done before I became mayor, which was 2016.
Okay. I'm going to give this question to Tanya. Tanya, was there a settlement made with Solvay? Okay.
Yeah, there's a settlement that's pending that I was mentioning before where that the
Is it
state,
pending or
Yeah.
was already completed?
no, it's pending.
It's pending. So no
Yes.
money was allocated to the state, to the town.
No, not yet. It's pending. It's pending for a court to approve it.
Okay, what compensation or correction is that going to do me in my home as far as my tap water goes?
So if we were to play this out and a settlement was approved by the court and then a fund administered by the DEP to either reimburse communities for treatment they already put in place or to help them pay for treatment that they need to put in place but haven't done yet. That would ultimately ensure that your drinking water is meeting the standards that we have set for protection of your health.
And if I can jump in here, the Pauls, because of our issues, we submit a lot of water samples on a daily
Yes.
basis because they have to be checked because of ours. The tap water is fine. And we want another plant to help out with all that because we're only using one set of filters and all at this time. It's a money issue in regards to us,
Yeah.
and that we're spending $250,000 of taxpayer dollars a year to change out the filters.
Yeah.
And the PFAS is getting worse and worse, and we're never going to let our citizens drink bad water, and nor will the state allow that.
No.
But so this is what we need: another building, a system built, and then filters to be changed for the millennium because
Yeah, this is an important point, and forgive my not being as complete in my statement. So the Department of Environmental Protection, we oversee all of the water systems to make sure that the water systems are meeting standards, right? And the water systems test water on a regular basis in their distribution system, right? And then they send that information to the DEP. If they're exceeding a standard, we make them take action to correct that. So in the case of Paulsboro, that might mean turning off one well that is drawing from a part of the aquifer that's the most contaminated. But the water system would not be allowed to continue serving water that is not meeting standards. There has to be a fix, right? And sometimes that's accommodated by what we call source switching, right? Getting more water from an interconnection to another community, but not drawing more from the source that is most impacted. It's not the case that every well of every water system uses in this region is serving you bad water. That's not true, right? The question is, how do we make sure that you're getting the upgrades needed or the reimbursement deserved for righting the problem?
Okay, so why couldn't you put filters on every domestic property instead of worrying about a well?
Because it is the requirement of the law is to make it so that you don't have to have a water filter on your tap.
Well, excuse me, I have patients that I have been in their homes and said, let me test your water and
Mhm.
I'll test mine. And they have a filter on their faucet. They have zero.
Having a filter on your faucet is a good idea, right?
Okay, so
It's a-
stop right there.
Yeah.
If that's a good idea, why can't that be implemented by Solvay?
Because it is ultimately the responsibility of anyone who sells you water, whether that water is sold to you by your town or if you're served by a big company like New Jersey American or whomever, right? It is the requirement that the water they sell you is clean. It is not your responsibility to clean it. If you want to have added protection on your tap, It's a good idea.
What does clean mean to you?
It means
A,
consistent
a
with
little
the-
bit of impurity
It means
or
consistent.
no impurities?
It means consistent with the standards set by the state of New Jersey, which are the strongest in the country.
But
Right?
there still may be impurities in there.
There's always impurity in water in some way or another. Water is very
I just told
complicated.
you, I just told you, I've been in patients' homes and they run their water through a filter.
Sure,
Well, then why can't that be done in our homes?
because we want to ensure that the water you get from who sells it to you is consistent with all the standards.
I understand that, but the standards allow for a certain amount of toxic chemicals in that water.
I'm not arguing with you that having a filter is a good added layer of protection.
Well, excuse me, let me ask, how many people in here drink their tap water versus how many people drink water that they either buy in the store and bottled water or whatever?
Tap.
Tap. Okay. So would you say the majority of people drink bottled water? Filtered water, bottled water?
I'm
whatever you wanna
gonna
call it?
offer you all some information and wake up to a lawsuit from the bottled water companies tomorrow. Okay? Bottled water is not the answer. You live in the state with the strongest drinking water protections in the country. Chances are you turn over that label, that water that you got came from a state that does not have the strength of standards that we do.
I agree with you. That may be true. But I'm saying by providing each homeowner with a filter that would remove those purities, no matter where they came from,
I hear you.
wouldn't that solve the problem?
No,
Why not?
because it wouldn't maximally protect people's health. Because everyone would, we would then be reliant upon everyone always changing their filters. What if folks don't put filters on every tap and they're making their infant formula sometimes from the best? You should be able to turn on every tap in your home and have reliably clean, safe drinking water, always,
With no toxins.
with nothing above the standard that protects public
See,
health.
Yeah, but see, you're still allowing certain level of toxins.
Nothing that
And-
is going to be harmful to your health.
Who determines what's harmful?
The Drinking Water Quality Institute.
I don't trust them either, to be honest with you. Don't.
I can understand that, but
No.
you should,
No.
because they have
Well, I mean,
protected
that's-
drinking
that's
water.
Probably the best that we can get.
It's the best in the nation.
And then to boot, you talked about community costs. Gary, when did our water and sewer bills go up 4 times?
As I, as mayor, it probably went up every year, but understand the water and sewer bills, our sewer is county. They give us price increases. Yeah, you might as well sit here. But I don't know if anybody heard me, but as far as the sewer, we go to the GCUA, they raise their cost every year and we just pass that exact cost on to the customer as far as the sewer. Our water costs go up because we have, water plant to operate and such. We have to pay for what Solvay hasn't paid, the 200 and some thousand on the change out and filters. So we raise it just to meet those rising costs. And this is where we're discussing the money helps. If I can address one issue and you hit on it. We have a lot of, and pardon my French here, bunch of slumlords in town that will throw people out if they complain, if they call us that their smoke detectors are not working and all. I can't trust anybody to replace a filter on their sink because they'll just say, you know what, I got to call my landlord up. And who's going to test the water every day? And I would not jeopardize anybody's health or safety in that matter of us, the borough, or somebody coming in, because you don't know when that filter is going to go bad. So I agree with the commissioner here. The water that's coming out of those taps is safe, and whether there's little impurities or stuff, And that's, I agree with you 1,000% in that. No filters. People want to go buy an extra filter, let them do so. God bless them. Please do it. Go ahead. But I know our water, especially through all the testing we go through, is completely safe. Now, you may not like the taste of it or something because of the chemicals we're using, but I'll tell you right now, that water is 1,000,000 times safe. And that's what we'll
Wow.
continue to do. So
I beg to differ with you. I don't mean you personal, but I'm talking about the standards because I have tasted and seen other people have these filters. And I don't know why that could not have been allotted in the settlement with Solvay. Now, whether the person wants to change the filter, that's their business. But at
But if
least
you don't change it, it doesn't
provided
work.
them- But at least you provided them with the filter
Hmm.
to begin with.
I do
Anyway.
understand. I do understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I really do.
That's it.
Thank you. We are an hour over our time. Wow. But I'm not gonna, we got one more person who wants to speak and I'm not gonna shut anybody out.
Okay, hi. My question is actually related to any type of grant funding or support for some positive work on environmental stuff in the area. My name is Jennifer Maiden. I'm a resident here in Paulsboro. I went to Paulsboro High School, moved away for decades, came back about 6 or 7 years ago. I work at Rowan University. I'm a dean in the business school, and I'm also the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission in town. We have one property in town that there is still public access to the waterfront. We had hoped for that to extend to where the recycling center is now. So it's changed some of the plans that we had thought, but we are interested in doing something on that water area that still has public access. Are there grants through any of your organizations that would help us for environmental reclamation, restoration, whatever framing that you want, because there's some really nice space there, but we know there's a lot of problems. So whether it's native plants, removing invasives, doing things along that waterway to help the wildlife, that was part of the vision that we had for that plot of land.
There's a bunch of things that come to mind. So first is the New Jersey Green Acres program. Right, the Green Acres program is a grant program where funding can flow to both local governments and nonprofit organizations in order to make improvements to either acquire or improve open spaces. And so our funding round for that just closed, and it usually opens up in October. Applications start coming in through February. We award them by April, May. So being ahead of that for the next cycle and planning something out could be a good opportunity, right? A local community group can apply for that funding. The municipality can certainly apply for that funding. And that's one idea. And then there are also watershed restoration grants because LIV gives us a lot of money. Thank you, LIV. And then we try to spread it around as best we can. And those, I can't remember off the top of my head the next time one of those goes out, but this is the kind of information that Candace would share. And you're also working on another watershed related EJ issue with our EJAC. So as those shape up, we can share them with you.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
And Liv?
Yep, and what I can add to that is the Thriving Community Technical Assistance Center. So they do focus a lot on the money that EPA has, but they do also have information about what other federal agencies have too. So there are pots of money all across the federal family. So I would suggest going to WEACT's website. It's weact.org/TCTAC for TICTEC, Thriving Community Technical Assistance Center.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I would be remiss if we didn't go to a question that we have online. We haven't had any questions online. So let's take this one from Kate Tierno is our last one. And I'm not sure that we have a concrete answer for you, Kate, but want to make sure that your sentiment is being lifted up tonight. And so Kate is from Greenwich Township. And she says, How do you handle repeated violations for non-reporting? Please tell me why my water smells like straight bleach and why my whole family's skin is constantly itchy.
I don't know why um, those things are occurring, but where there are violations of drinking water standards, they are pursued by DEP as soon as that is apparent from the data that is submitted. Right, and there's a website that is available from DEP called Drinking Water Watch, and you can see all of the results submitted in your community. You put in where what community you're with, and it shows you your water system, and you can see the results submitted, and you can see if there's a violation, and then what's been done to correct for that violation. I don't know these particular ones off the top of my mind, but we can certainly get back to the resident who asked with an answer on any violation in their water system. And Liv, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's your jurisdiction.
All right, so let me
If
wrap this.
EPA has to pursue a violation, you know it's not good.
Yeah. I think
So-
that one can be handled.
So let me wrap us up. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and for sharing your personal testimonies and stories. It's so important that we have this context that really, like I said before, colors the work that we do. Is so important for us to be grounded in places and spaces across the state, Paulsboro being one of them. So thank you. I know that there are a lot of frustrations in the room and that tonight we didn't give a bunch of golden solutions. But what I will say is that I'm really encouraged by your passion, by your commitment, and by the number of people that showed up tonight. This is the first step in building a community of people that are caring about these issues, and together partnering with EPA and partnering with DEP, we can get somewhere over time. So let this not be the first time that we're speaking and that we're relating with one another. Please continue to connect with us and let us know what's on your mind. So thank you.
Liv?
I just want to reiterate the thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. It was raining when we first came here, and I wasn't sure what the turnout was going to be. If it's going to be more people online than in person, but this shows your deep dedication to your community just by the number of people who are here, and certainly by the number of comments received. So I know I gave out a lot of websites, a lot of URLs. I'm going to make sure I give all that information to New Jersey DEP and that we get that sent out to all of you. And certainly don't hesitate to reach out at any time. Thank you so much.
And lastly, I'll just, as a sort of further reflection on what Candace had offered, is to thank you all for sharing your thoughts, your frustrations, your anger in some respects. Let this be the beginning of a continuing conversation that we all have together, that we continue to see and hear from you, because the work that we do to protect our air, our land, and water, it's work that we do for you, right? The government works for you, right? Because our natural resources, they're not owned by the government, they're owned by you, right? It's your air, it's your land, your water, it's your community, and it's just our job to help protect it for you. So thank you all. Thank you for helping us do that.